Getting into hair metal territory with a band that formed in Sheffield, England in 1977. Photograph was their first really big hit here in the States in 1983, and Rock of Ages and Foolin', all in 1983. And what was that song they did in 84? Gosh, Bringing On the Heartbreak. But that was off another album they did in 81. I think it was called High and Dry, but don't quote me on the name of the album. It was their second album. But Bringing On the Heartbreak, I believe, was the name of the record that was played a lot on night tracks back in 84. Great record by Def Leppard, but was not a big hit. But Def Leppard's Rocket at number 25 on my fancy playlist, March 18th, 1989, from Hysteria. Seventh single released in the U.S. off that album. That was a major hit-making album. It didn't look too promising at first. The first single was Woman. Went to number 80, something like number 80 on Billboard's Hot 100. But that single was probably to be service to the album rock stations to let them know that, hey, Def Leppard is back and they are rocking. And then Animal came out in the fall of 87, which is more commercial sounding. That made top 20. I believe it made top 20. And of course, we got Photograph and Hysteria and Love Bites off the album, all in 1988. And we got Rocket now in 1989. Rocket has some interesting origins to it. Did a lot of research on this record. Spent about 10 minutes researching, and I tell you, there's a lot of things that went into this album. It was basically the drum beats, the tribal beats was inspired by a record. I believe it came out in the early 70s. It's by a man named Bronte Stevenson Black. And what happened was Joe Elliott, lead singer, he listened to a tape of a tune called Bronte Black, which is by Bronte Stevenson Black. I hope I'm pronouncing his first name correctly. Well, here's the deal. Joe Elliott, he listened to this tune, Bronte Black, which is basically an instrumental of tribal beats, some music. He took the tape and he made a demo. He made a rough demo. He looped the beats. He created a rhythm loop based on the tape. He overlaid that loop with guitar, with guitar chords. He submitted it to the legendary producer Mutt Lange, who worked with Aerosmith, AC/DC, Def Leppard, later worked with Shania Twain, actually married her later on for a time. And they took Joe Elliott's idea and they developed it. They re-recorded the demo at a higher key. There are parts of the song, if you listen to it, parts of the verse where you hear a lot of drum beats, tribal drum beats. Well, what sounded like tribal drum beats. Well, that was Mutt Lange. He had programmed a number of drum machines to play. At the same time, the drummer Rick Allen was playing his drums slightly off kilter, out of sync, a little bit out of sync, to give that tribal flavor, that tribal drum flavor of the record. Now, here's the thing about Bronte Black. He influenced some of the new wave artists that came out in the early 80s. Adam and the Ants, particularly Kings of the Wild Frontier. Bow Wow Wow. When they redid I Want Candy, had that very similar tribal beat to Bronte Black. So Bronte Black, very influential record you probably never heard of before. I didn't until I researched it. I just found out about it, listened to it on YouTube. And you can hear how Def Leppard kind of rocked the tune up a little bit, rock it. Mutt Lange had another idea. He wanted the group to record monk-like chants, to emphasize the guitar solo and the breakdown. Very similar to what Adam and the Ant did in the tune Dog Eat Dog. And, well, what can I say? Rocket, another hit record by Def Leppard off of Hysteria. It's at number 25 on my fancy playlist, March 18th, 1989.